Hi, Kevin Henry, the managing editor of Dental Economics. I'm here today with Jim Higgins, founder and CEO of Smile Reminder. And we're going to be talking a little bit today about the web, where it is, and where it's going. So, Jim, I've heard a lot of talk about Web 2.0, like the evolution of the web. So, is it evolving? Where do you see it going right now?
Yeah, good question. So Web 2.0 essentially is about open standards. It's about interactivity. Prior to that, it was about static web pages and trying to find information that made it a little bit more difficult. So you have the introduction of social networking sites, video, different things like that. So essentially that's Web 2.0. Web 3.0 has kind of taken it to the next level. And so some examples of Web 2.0 that we understand: YouTube came out with video. You had all the social networking sites, and it was a dramatic shift from expert-generated content that we relied on early on the web to user-generated content. So essentially it created a big paradigm shift in terms of customers and how companies needed to effectively engage customers. Okay. And if you put into the dental atmosphere or environment, you have to think about how practices engage patients. It's very different, changing all the time.
I know there's a lot of dental practices out there that aren't even on Web 1.0 right now because they're a little nervous about taking that first step. What's some of the entry points you think that maybe dental practices should be looking at right now?
It's a good question. I think that a lot of practices think that I haven't been on the web, or it's kind of a big deal. It's a little bit overwhelming too when you think about social networking and video and all these things. Tackle one thing at a time. I think it's a cumulative effort in terms of your marketing and branding on the web. You can't think of just one thing. So there's different entry points. There's maybe a Google local listing and claiming that, which is very simple. Google actually creates all of these for every business around the country, so around the world, in fact. So if you're a dentist and you don't know that you have one, and you can go out and claim it and then just start there. It might be getting a website. Different web companies do different things, but just getting out there, I think, is a really important step. It's not as hard as you think. A lot of companies think that it's very difficult, or a lot of practices, I should say, think it's difficult to get out there, and so they'll spend a lot of money trying to tackle a bigger issue of search engine optimization or search engine marketing or something like that. And I think it's taking one step at a time and make sure it fits together.
When you look at some of the dental practices that do have websites, what are some of the common errors that you see out there and things that maybe dental practices should be avoiding as far as the internet goes?
I think that sometimes people try to be too much too soon. So, for instance, putting everything on the website that makes it kind of confusing for the patient to actually get the information they're looking for. So, for instance, putting too many things on there sometimes clutter it up. I think a simple approach is really very important. And when you think about a website, what should it be? If you think about prior to Web 2.0, you're looking at brochureware. It was just, this is a static page, this is the information out there. 2.0, again, has gone to user-generated. And so, for instance, people are looking and saying, what do my friends think about this dentist versus what this dentist is telling me, why he or she is great. So it's a dramatic shift in terms of how you need to present the information. I think educational is number one. Obviously, every website needs to have basic information, but you should have some interactivity with the patient, and that's where I think the biggest issue is, where practices have a website and they've gone out and done that, but then they have no communication with their patients. It's a huge gap.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely a huge gap. Considering Web 3.0 is so much more user-generated and so much more open and collaborative that you really need to think about what your strategy is from I'm on the web now to how do I interact and really reach my patients? Because you remember, the whole patient loyalty bridge has to be gapped someplace. And so I think that's the biggest thing that's missing today.
It seems like sometimes there's even a battle over substance versus style as far as websites go. That like you said, a lot of people sometimes forget the very basics that are on there. Even they're more worried about flash and everything else. What are some helpful hints maybe that you give people in that respect?
Not being a web developer myself, of course, I've seen a lot of different things out there, and I think that you can really go too far in a lot of different things. And so I think if you go all flash, there's a problem, obviously.
Sure.
And there's a problem with how your information's indexed, etc. If you kind of go away from everything in terms of Flash, I don't think that's very good either. Because I mean, on our website, if you go to our company, you'll see we do have some Flash. We also have information and links that you can get to very easily. I think a clean site that has your brand in mind is extremely important.
What's the one thought you want people to take away regarding Web 2.0 or even Web 3.0 right now?
Yeah, I think the main thought about Web 3.0 is that everything is user-generated, and so you can't think of the web in terms of I'm out there now with a web page. You need to think of it in terms of how do my patients see me and how are they going to be interacting with me now and moving on to the future. And so, a lot of different places that you're going to show up in terms of your practice is critical. And it's very easy to get out there. Local listings I talked about, social networking I've talked about, video and how that's coming down and how that's being integrated. When you think about, take a step back from search for a little bit, and I think it's important for people to understand kind of how it started. If you look at search, it was very rudimentary in the beginning. Google had one box, that was it. You found the information and it guessed. It's essentially what Google says. They guess about what information you have. So they've gone from there to the next evolution was along the lines of universal search, where they brought in not only text information, but video, pictures, and they blended that information into your search to try to get you better information about what you're looking for. Now, in 3.0, they've gone all the way to creating personalization, where you can actually log in and say, I don't like that search result. I don't want that anymore. You can erase it and delete it. And 3.0 has also introduced a couple of new things that they just launched, a couple of things called More Options at the top. And the More Options gives you a tremendous ability. And when I talk about 3.0, it really is trying to make a computer think like a human. So if you can think about a machine being able to read a search, for instance, cosmetic dentistry, and then say, well, what's related with cosmetic dentistry? And then give you that information right now versus you thinking, okay, I got some information on cosmetic dentistry. Now I need to dig in. And if you're really going for patient financing, that's a related topic. So, for instance, in Web 3.0, one of the things that Google's launched is called a Wonder Wheel. And it's really neat how this information is done. So basically what happens is you can put a search for in Google of cosmetic dentistry, hit the options button, and then what you're going to find there is a different set of essentially categories of information that Google has now given to you, okay, user-generated. So you can go on and click patient financing, and you can get to, for instance, care credit. Now, if I'm a consumer and I'm looking at cosmetic dentistry, well, there's a relation and a link between that and patient financing, potentially. I wasn't looking for patient finance to begin with. I didn't know anything about care credit, for instance, as a consumer.
Sure. But
I found that through Google putting information together that makes sense. And so it's another evolution, and you need to think about that in terms of your practice. So because Google's grabbing all of this information out there and they're categorizing it, you want to be in multiple places. Okay. There's all kinds of things, of blogs, et cetera, et cetera. The multiple places is really key in going forward with practices.
Okay. And the multiple places are some of the things we'll be talking about in some of the subsequent videos that we're going to be shooting today. So we hope that you'll stick around and see some of the things we talk about regarding YouTube and video and blogs and Facebook and social media and everything else. So, Jim, I appreciate the time. Thanks.
Hey, thank you.